Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. And welcome, my friends, to Secret Origins Month 3! A lot of people have been anticipating this year's Secret Origins month, even throwing out suggestions for it that I should probably address. The big one is people wanting to see villain origins. Unfortunately, that's not gonna happen this year, or probably even next year or the year following, sorry to say. It's actually a rather good idea. The problem is that we still have a lot of heroes to get through. Hell, we haven't even gotten to the first comic with the Avengers, and that's only because I want to do more of its members before I get to that. Another idea was to look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles' first comic. The problem with that one is the same problem I had with doing Spawn's origin. They're too recent! The idea behind Secret Origins Month is to go all the way back to the Gold and Silver Ages. Comics were different back then. They had different art styles, different ways of laying out panels, and a completely different way of writing. Hell, it's been pointed out to me that the reason comics used to have so many exclamation points in the dialogue was because they were afraid a period would be too small for the reader to see. That's the kind of fears they had back in the day. But anyway, let's get to our subject today, The Flash. Like with Green Lantern, we're going to look at the Golden Age version of the fastest man alive. And like the original Green Lantern, we'll get to Barry Allen eventually. I feel even more desire to look at the Golden Age versions due to what's happened in recent times in comics. I've mentioned the DC relaunch before. Reboot! And part of it is that superheroes only started appearing about 5 to 10 years ago in their time frame. They never had a golden age of heroes. There are positives and negatives to that. Hell, I made a webcomic trying to give an optimistic view of the world having a superhero for the first time. However, the big downside is that they've lost one of the things that made the DC universe so great to begin with. Its legacy. The second book that I started regularly reading after Teen Titans that got me deeper into the DCU was JSA, about the Justice Society. Heroes who were still alive even after serving in World War II. Were they old? Yeah, but they could still kick 7 kinds of ass, and they still fought alongside a younger generation, occasionally passing the torch on to their children and grandchildren. There's so much history and intrigue, and that's what pisses me off so much about the reboot. It sweeps it all away, supposedly under this vague notion of iconic, even though they keep changing iconic elements and are unable to describe what iconic is. But yeah, now we have heroes entering into a time that's dark and kind of paranoid, and everything's gruesome and grim. It's the 90s all over again. Dude! Some of us are less upset about that than others. Anyway, the Golden Age characters do have a new lease on life in the book Earth 2, and while they've revised it so they're just starting out on this alternate Earth, Earth 2 is a surprisingly good read, very enjoyable, and a reminder that Cry for Justice was simply some horrible delusion from James Robinson, and that he can still write really damn good stuff. So why am I talking about all this instead of the creation of the Flash himself? Well, that's because there's shockingly little information that I can find about the creation of the original Flash. But maybe we could just let the comic speak for itself, as we dig into Flash Comics number 1.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. Brodsky, you're not the smartest. Life out, you're not an artist. Anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be
I should note that Flash Comics #1, like Action Comics and Detective Comics before it, is an anthology, so we get other stories too. Most noteworthy, the first stories of Hawkman and Johnny Thunder. Because I don't want this episode to run too long, and because I want to focus on the Flash, we're only going to look at Jay Garrick's inaugural story. The Flash debuted in 1940, written by Gardner Fox and drawn by Harry Lampert. While an anthology book, it is the Flash's name that's across the top, so he's the one who gets the main action on the cover. Introducing the Flash, fastest man alive! And yet, I'm still waiting for my pizza to arrive. The Flash is running to stop a bullet with his hand. Wow! That will just shoot a hole through his hand. The Flash's costume is remarkably simple. A red skin-tight shirt with a lightning bolt on it, blue jeans with lightning bolts sewn on them, and a salad bowl helmet. Well, okay, it's supposed to resemble the helmet worn by the Roman god Mercury. Still, you gotta hand it to the guy. At least Clark Kent had glasses to cover up his face. This dude just puts on a helmet to hide his identity. We open with the Flash doing ballet, apparently, as his one foot is up on his tippy toes. And his torso is kind of bulky. And the other leg just disappears from sight. Maybe we got Rob Liefeld all wrong. He's actually an artist from the Golden Age who was somehow transported here. Faster than the streak of the lightning in the sky. Swifter than the speed of the light itself. Fleeter than the rapidity of thought. Speedier than a Gonzales. The Flash, reincarnation of the winged Mercury. You may want to clarify if you're speaking metaphorically. With superhero comics, that's entirely plausible. His speed is the dismay of scientists. Only a science major could... Damn it, I am so dismayed! But before he became known and feared as the fastest thing on Earth, Jay Garrick was an unknown student at Midwestern University. Except for, well, all the people who knew him, as we're about to see. Jay runs up to his love interest, Joan, and asks her out to a dance. Don't think so, Jay. You're a scrub on the football team. And you never stand up to Dr. Cox. And Captain Bull Tryon's already asked me. You mean you won't go out with me just because I'm a football scrub? Well, that and the werewolf thing. No, but because a man of your build and brains could be a star. A scrub is just an old washwoman. You won't put your mind to football. So he's a towel boy for the football team? I'm confused now. Also, let this be a lesson, aspiring men. The ladies only appreciate your strength and intelligence if it's put to use on a college football team. So I'm... an old washwoman, eh? I'll show her! I'll only use regular strength on her laundry! Jay tries to do better on the football field, but still has trouble. But in the research laboratory, the football dub is a brilliant student. Football dub? He's the football team's translator? Jay, you've studied the gases emanating from hard water for 3 years. Hard water? They're experimenting on ice? Well, okay, obviously Gardner Fox meant heavy water, since that's what it tends to be retconned as in future stories. Jay works on it long into the night, naturally wearing a business suit while he does so, because that's appropriate attire for science. He goes on until 3:30 in the morning. 3:30? I need a smoke. Oh, 1940s. Never change. And guess what? All he does is turn his back to the lab equipment and just light up. Right next to his equipment, for crying out loud. Damn it, I miss the days when you were allowed to smoke next to sensitive chemical mixtures in laboratories. Boy, that feels good.
God, I love cigs. I gotta get a carton of these for my pregnant wife.
And I guess that cigarette was just so alive with pleasure for him that he completely leaned back onto the beaker full of heavy water, and it drops down to the floor and shatters, emitting noxious fumes. Whew! That gas is powerful stuff. Oh, wow, man. By the way, I would love it if it turned out that this whole thing was just an anti-smoking PSA. Overcome by the fumes, Jay lurches forward. It's too much for me. Squiggly lines. overpowering me. Ugh. The next day, the professor who was working with him walks in and finds his body, which has been inhaling the deadly fumes of the gas elements of hard water. I don't think this comic knows what half of those words mean. Especially not deadly, because I imagine he'd be, dead if he was inhaling deadly fumes all night. He's in the hospital for the next few weeks, but fortunately he makes it through. Boy, that food tastes good. I could eat a horse. You'll eat mush for another week and like it. Ha 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 ha. Have you noticed that my torso is really boxy? In another section of the hospital, Colonel Sanders here is talking with the professor about what's happened to Jay. Unless the specialist from New York is crazy, your boy will be the fastest thing that ever walked on Earth. The elements of hard water will speed up a person's reflexes. The gas injects him like a vaccination. Yeah, the gas injects him via his lungs. What? Science knows that hard water makes a person act much quicker than ordinarily.
Of course! Don't you know anything about science?
By an intake of its gases, Jay can walk, talk, run, and think swifter than thought. He will probably be able to outrace a bullet. Here, let's go test it. Jay is apparently safe to go home now, but he spots Joan outside the window and immediately runs out to her at super speed. He even proclaims, "Whee! Can I travel? Whee! Does this comic know dialogue or what?" He super speeds to a library to get a book for her and then returns it. It scares me, sort of, but I guess I'm just a freak of science. In fact, you could say that I'm a super freak. Super freak. I'm super freaky. He asks her once again to go to the dance, but she says she only will if he plays in the state game. I do have to wonder about people like this. If her love is dependent on football careers, what the hell is she gonna do if none of these guys get picked up for the major leagues? Anyway, the game comes and Jay gets his shot and of course uses his superpowers to score touchdown after touchdown. Boy, this is the stuff! A football star and a date with Joan tonight! With great power, there must also come a hot date and the accolades from your peers. You should feel lucky you're in the DC universe, Jay. If this was Marvel, your loved ones would have one foot in the grave by now. Jay eventually graduates, and naturally, he is not some massive celebrity or something for his amazing superpowers. Nah, he gets to move to New York and become an assistant professor. Joan, meanwhile, goes off to help her military father in his atomic bombarder research. I'd make a joke about the Hulk, but we actually have a few more weeks to go before we get to him. In New York, Jay reads about some gangsters who keep eluding the district attorney, and apparently that's all the inspiration he needs to become the Flash. Seriously, that's it. That night, the gangsters are visited by a figure clad in the wings of Mercury, a human bolt of lightning, the Flash. And we don't get to see any of that visit. We just cut to a bunch of gangsters quitting their profession because of this. He just disappears in front of you. I'm quitting this racket. But what will you do with all your green plaid suits if you're not a gangster? I feel better, turning my speed into channels to fight crime. I feel useful to humanity. I like narrating to myself out loud. I feel useful to the reader. Sometime later, Joan and a professor spot Jay exercising by playing tennis with himself. Apparently, Jay and Joan didn't keep in touch, must be the lack of football in his life, because Jay is surprised to see her. She says that her father has been kidnapped and she hoped he could help. And all of a sudden, a car pulls up and someone shoots at Joan. Attuning himself to the speed of the bullet to avoid injury, he lurches forward. Okay, I joked about this with the cover, but actually, according to the physics of superheroes, it is actually possible for him to pluck a bullet out of the air if he's going as fast as it, and he moves his arm in a sweeping motion. Like how a catcher in baseball will still move their glove in the same direction the ball is going to lower the stopping force necessary to, well, stop it. My problem with the cover is that it looks like he's just putting his hand in front of it, which is not going to stop it. Here, though, he matches the speed and manages to catch the bullet, to the amazement of Joan and the other guy who still hasn't gotten a name yet. We cut to another part of town where the gangsters are celebrating their belief that Joan is dead. Apparently no one bothered to look behind them as they were driving off to make sure they got her. I, Seer Satan, say that Williams will now tell us his secret base of the atomic bombarder. Yes, he will totally be willing to help us once we tell him that we murdered his daughter. Wait. Also, Seer Satan. Seer Satan! And I, Serge Orloff, Surgeon Extraordinary, will give his daughter her life. If he tells.
Great moment there, dumbass. It starts out with a profound misunderstanding of how the human body works and winds up with you shattering some old man's hand.
Dudes, when a huge part of your plan depends on bringing the dead back to life, I think you might want to go back to the drawing board. And remember, this was Plan A. Also, no one talks like this. What of me, Duriel? I shall visit him in the room of mirrors to get his answer. One dude is named Satan, and another is named Duriel. Kinda laying it on a bit thick, aren't we? Hey, I wonder who the bad guys of this comic are. I mean, they just tried to shoot and murder someone, but that doesn't quite convince me. So this is what Duriel was doing before he was guarding Tyrael in Tal Rasha's tomb, huh? Gotta say, I think he looks more horrific with the snidely whiplash mustache than he does as the giant slug mantis thing. Anyway, he goes to visit Joan's father in the Room of Mirrors. These mirrors are stealing my mind! Okay, dude, I wouldn't nominate you for sexiest man alive, but you're not that ugly. I think you can live with seeing your own reflection for a few hours. Wimp. He still refuses to talk since his daughter wouldn't want him to reveal it. Satan, Duriel, and Orloff discuss how selling the secret of the bombarder would make them all millionaires. Though I do have to wonder how they plan to get past all the other military personnel in that base, but whatever. Duriel leaves to go get the body since he's apparently an undertaker. He runs into Jay outside of her home and reveals that he knows about the shooting despite them not having told anyone about it. Duriel then speeds off when he sees that Joan is fine. She says that he must be one of the Faultless Four. She explains that the Faultless Four are 4 brilliant scientists who wanted the secrets of the atomic bombarder. And I guess despite being brilliant scientists, they all have to take second jobs, since Duriel said he was an undertaker. Jay changes into the Flash and speeds off in pursuit of Duriel, finding their hideout and confronting the Faultless Three, I guess. Oh wait, there's a 4th guy who miraculously appears and isn't named here, who shows up at the bottom of the page. They try to shoot him, but once more he plucks the bullet out of the air and then runs off to find Joan's dad. I don't know who you are, but I'm mighty glad to see you. Man, it's a good thing that Jay is completely indistinguishable from other men when he puts on a silly hat. He gets the guy back to Joan and runs off, the father saying that he didn't even get a chance to see what he looks like. Fair enough. I mean, he was probably exhausted from, the mirrors. The Flash goes back to the headquarters of the Four to overhear their plans. Their plan is to launch an attack at Coney Island Beach and then grab Joan and her father in the confusion. Not sure how they know that the two will be there, but whatever. If I let them go through with it, secure in the belief that all works smoothly, I'll get them in the act of murder! Hey, we can totally hear you over there! I mean, maybe you shouldn't be loudly announcing your own plans when you're just behind a curtain. So yeah, Duriel launches his attack in a plane with a tiny machine gun, I must say, and the Flash is there to stop all of the machine gun bullets before they can actually kill anyone. He then runs off to the Four to nab them, but Satan slips out of the room and throws a switch. I've killed the Flash! I've electrocuted him! The room is wired to kill! I've killed them all! Jeez, who would have ever thought that a guy named Satan was untrustworthy? However, Jay was easily able to slip out of the room. Satan quickly goes to his car and starts speeding off. You shall also die! even as Duriel, Orloff, and Smythe. Even as they what? Okay, 1940s, I'd appreciate it if your dialogue made a little bit of sense. Also, Jay Garrick will kill your ass if you threaten his girlfriend. Satan's mind cracks under the terrific strain. I'm envisioning that the Satan that they're referring to is Mephisto, who can't stand the strain of Spider-Man's marriage and love, and he just gives them back to Peter and Mary Jane. Good times. Satan drives off a cliff and dies, his car apparently melting based on this panel. And so our comic ends with Joan's father talking about how awesome the Flash is. Joan winking at Jay and saying a secret's a secret, isn't it? Unless it's a really badly kept secret. Anyway, this comic is not a great origin. Now, it's perfectly okay for Jay to not have some catchphrase or something to motivate him into crime fighting, but how he gets his powers is that he was a dumbass while smoking a cigarette and just kind of literally stumbled into getting superpowers. And his first instinct for using them is win football games and attract the woman who only cared about football stars. The criminals' plan doesn't make any sense and it lacks subtlety or nuance. But it's not offensive or anything, it's just to the point where you're really not sure why you should care. As a character, Jay Garrick did a lot better as time went on, and there are plenty of better stories than how he began. But still, join us next week for the origin that's,
She's a very kinky girl, the kind you don't take home to mother. She will never let your spirits down once you get her off the street. Oh, girl. She likes the boys in the band. She says that I'm her all-time favorite. When I make my move to her room, it's the right time. She's never hard to please. Oh, no. That girl is pretty wild now. Girl's a super freak. The kind of girl you read about in magazines. That girl is pretty kinky. Girl's a super freak. I really love to taste her. Every time we meet, she's alright. She's alright. That girl's alright with me.
only a science major could smoke a cigarette like this.